Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hormone Helper Podcast. I'm Coach Andrew, your hormone helper from Fit for All Fitness. I personally coach over 1,600 men and women to help better understand their hormones so they can lose weight and get their metabolism back on track. With this podcast, you're going to hear from me and my special guests about everything from metabolism to thyroid to weight loss. And we even talk a little bit of sexy time as we chat to spread more knowledge, thick like butter, on your hormones. If you're ready to learn, I'm ready to share, so let's do this. Welcome back, everyone, to the Hormone Helper Podcast. Today's guest is Tree Ryde, a powerhouse when it comes to understanding human behavior, emotional patterns, and what really holds people back from the goals that they say that they want. Tree's journey has taken her through a ton of industries: fashion, film, marketing, and now she's in corporate transformation. And through it all, she's really developed a deep understanding of what drives people and what causes people to sabotage on themselves. So I brought Tree on because her work is really rooted in helping people move through this emotional resistance, so that way her clients can turn big ambitions into aligned sustainable successes. And especially in this day and age, there are a lot of people experiencing a significant amount of disconnect. So if we can reconnect to our goals, realign with ourselves, I think Tree can help us do that today. So I'm really pumped to have you on. How are you today?
I'm great. And thank you for that introduction. I should bring you everywhere I go just to do that same introduction. That is so awesome because it really articulates what I do specifically. So great. And I'm excited to get in front of your audience and to get them some help, right? Because we all sabotage ourselves in some way, shape, or form.
100% we do. I actually wanted to ask you, because I don't recall you sharing this with me in our individual convos, what drew you to this type of work?
So great question. Totally by accident. Probably the universe dragged me kicking and screaming.
Nice.
Truth be told, totally by accident. Quick story. When I was doing marketing, I was doing marketing for the Burlington Hypnosis Center. That's where I'm located right now, situated. Like, this is one of our rooms here. And while I was doing the marketing, I was looking at her website information, and I was also teaching yoga part-time. So I thought, wow, hypnosis would be really cool, and to learn more about human behavior would be awesome to incorporate with yoga, because people would land on their mat and they would move their body, but they couldn't turn their brain off, right? So they'd either be in competition or judgment or thinking about all the tasks that they needed to do after they got off their mat. So I really wanted a little bit of a profound way to help people through getting out of their head and just really land on their mat how they need to for themselves. And so, I started doing the training and loved it. Continued a lot more higher advanced training. And then the owner asked me to work here for her. And that was like 15 years ago, something like that.
Okay, been in it for a hot minute.
Yeah, and so here I am.
So you've been in this industry now for quite a while, and I feel like human behavior is something that everyone understands the words for. And even when you talk about the yoga practice, the practice of mindfulness, meditation, being present, these are things that people understand when you tell them, but they can take a very logical approach, and it can be something that we start checking it off almost as a to-do task instead of being really, really present. So I really wanted to dive in with you to the role of kind of this emotional state and this state of presence. Why do you think presence in a state of being is so difficult for people in today's day and age?
That's a great question. And it's interesting because people, they read all kinds of different books and they'll dissect or Google all of these things just to find out information. So somebody, for that specific question that you're asking, somebody would Google like how to be more present, right? But that's like almost just telling somebody, oh, well, just be happy, right? Like, just be present. Well, and it's different for everybody. Okay? Like, I'm working with so many people, not one human is exactly the same. So to just have one book or one thing work for every single human being, it's just unrealistic because we are so very different. So when we talk about being present, it is so different for everybody. So present for one person might be to build relationships more with their kids or to spend more time with their kids as they're young. One person to be present, it might just to have more time alone or to sit by a lake somewhere. Or somebody to be more present might be to get tasks done or build their business. So I think to be present, it starts a couple steps before actually being present. I think to be present, what's your goals? Where do you want your life? Where do you want to land in your life? So I think it's starting a couple steps before. And even when it comes to emotional regulation from a behavior point of view, that also starts 2 to even 5 steps prior to that heightened state of emotion.
Interesting. So, from my understanding of what you said, this role of being an emotional state plays largely into your ability to have presence day to day. And if you're not being present or you're having a hard time being in the moment or being present with anything that you're doing, it's probably because you just went straight to the doing and you weren't doing the actual being and the feeling and the thinking behind that doing. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, or knowing what it is that you want, right? So when we talk about like being in the moment, that's different. And it will be different. It's not just one thing, right? Like it's also about having your needs met. So for being, it could be cuddling with your spouse or partner. And that might be filling the need of feeling connection. Another being would be maybe filling a purpose that you have. Right? So being in that purpose, or what is that, and finding out what that purpose is, which can also change as your life changes, right? Because we all age and get older, so purpose definitely changes over time.
This mysterious word of purpose that everyone wants to heavily define and latch onto. How do you define purpose with your clients or the people that you're working with? Or what does that look like to you?
Yeah, great question. So, and that's different for every person. Like when people come in, when they get to the point that they're coming in and seeking help from the Burlington Hypnosis Center, that means something's not in alignment for their life. Meaning, they could have extra pounds that they're holding on to. They could be in a bad habit, whether it's smoking or vaping or biting their nails, or even I've had clients that they pull their hair out and stuff like that, and not on purpose. Okay. So when we talk about stepping into purpose, these negative patterns gently slide in, sometimes not so gently slide in, and not on purpose. It's sometimes from avoidance, sometimes fear. So if people are not within their purpose, sometimes they don't even know what that is. So they could be a little bit lost. And normally when people are lost, that means that they're probably helping somebody else out with their purpose. They're pleasing or placating and stepping into somebody else's purpose or lane, as opposed to really stepping out of their own fear or judgment and really stepping into their own lane and feeling confident with being there.
These habits that they've developed, the nail biting, the hair pulling, these types of things, are these coping mechanisms to keep them feeling safe? Are they just something that slid in because that's the way that they avoid it, like you say? Or what are they?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call them a coping mechanism. I would call them a distraction. I would also call them like a fear response. Right? So something's happening in their nervous system and it's more of a stress or fear response, right? And when you look at us as humans as a species, we generally will fight, flight, freeze, or what's called fawn, right? And so even if somebody's nervous system is freezing, then that energy has to go somewhere. Right? If it stays inside, internal, sometimes that can be manifesting internal illness or disease. Or it's coming out in like a weird way, like nail biting, pulling hair, or sometimes people will start drinking or eating. So all of these things, but it's more of an energetic thing and it has to go somewhere. Right? When people nowadays, like we live in houses where we would be out in the wilderness. So when we talk about fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, when people are alone, which us in North America, the way that we're living is we're building bigger houses and we're segregating ourselves more and more instead of actually being in community is where our natural state should be. So more people are alone. So when we're talking about the natural responses to stress or fear, then they're going internal because there's nobody else around to fight, right? To run away from. It's more of an emotion. And what people are doing is they're running away from emotion. The version of it in North America here is that they're running to their fridge, or they're running to a cigarette, or they're running to something that's unuseful for them.
Wow. It's interesting to hear you put it in an example of a home, because it really does show the level of separation. We could replace the home with the phone, where people are very isolated. You mentioned the fight, flight, freeze, and then you mentioned fawn. Most people may not be familiar with fawning. So can you describe to the audience what fawning is, and maybe where they can recognize that in their life? Because that is one that is very unusual for people to bring up.
Yeah, great question, Andrew. When people are fawning, that means that in their nervous system, they're having like a stress response. So stress can also be, like I mentioned, fear. It could be judgment. So they're feeling like they're being judged, or they're feeling like they're not measuring up, or there's something firing off in their nervous system. Again, not on purpose, right? And so what will happen is all of a sudden, whoever they feel like they're being judged, or that they're less than, they will go and be like, oh, I really love your hair, or oh, that's a great shirt. So they're giving them compliments to try to actually create a stronger rapport of the stuff that they're making up in their head that they believe that the person that they're in front of is thinking, which is not true. And every human goes through this. We all have dialogue in our mind of what it is that we believe other people or groups think of us. Right? So, that's why we dress the way we dress, or we create an identity of how it is that we want the world to see us. But we also all have our own insecurities.
When you say that, I can think to a mentor that I had a couple of years back who had me ask a question in conversations. What is this person looking for me to see in them? Whenever they have a conversation, whenever they bring something up, whenever they're approaching me, what is this person wanting me to see? Because we do, whether consciously or subconsciously, placate to those desires, placate to those needs, and then that starts manifesting itself in the conversations and the requests and the way we show up every day. And this is where stepping into your own authentic self is something that is so valuable and so important, because when you recognize that you control everything, that you do not need the validation, that everything can come from you and come from a place of love and happiness, this is where it becomes really easy to find something like fulfillment. Going through this emotional roller coaster, which really is a state of emotions, energy and motion, trying to move this. Why do people so often sabotage the very goals that they want?
Yeah, and the truth is that every single moment of every single day, us as humans, we are in an emotional state. Full stop. Think about that. Every moment of every single day, we are in an emotion. And those emotions are comprised of the situations that we're in. So a situation could be a long-term situation or a very short-term situation. An example of a short-term situation would be like stuck in traffic, hit your alarm clock a little bit too many times and you're running late. Long-term situations could be maybe you made a bad decision financially. So it's going to take you a little bit of a long term to boost yourself up financially. Or maybe you're in a relationship that somebody cheated on somebody else and you made the decision to stay together, and that's going to take a little bit of time to heal and to restore trust. So all of these things, whatever emotional state that we're in, also too, one of the biggest things that can cause our ongoing emotion for long term is every single human being has this sort of what I like to call this kind of like backtrack in our mind. And that backtrack is that of our worst critic growing up. Because that's how we're constantly making decisions or feeling like we're judged to some extent, right? So, for example, if say somebody grew up with their worst critic was say a parent, in my experience, the most common is either a parent or self, right? So, in my generation, and is different to Gen X generation, which is different to right now these young kids that are growing up when it comes to parents. Like I grew up in a generation that you left the house on a Saturday morning and you show up before the street lights turn off, right? Like, and you just kind of like do your own thing, lots of independence. You have to really come up with your own solutions and things like that. So when it comes to regulating your emotions, the things that we're learning or what that backtrack is dictates the strength in which you have the resiliency to rebound from emotions. Meaning that we can all choose our own emotions, but we don't always do that all the time. So when we learn how to choose our own emotions, it makes things easier. So that when a situation, whether it's short term or long term, that we're not allowing that heightened state of emotion to cause our behavior to change or sabotage ourselves. That was my long-winded answer.
No, it was very good. So this is really about, as opposed to being unconsciously reactive, where you are letting either someone else's emotion, the circumstance, or a past experience dictate what the emotion is in the moment. You want to say, okay, an experience has happened, or this is the situation that I find myself in. What is the emotion that I'm choosing to put to this? And let's lead through that. So it's not necessarily, hey, we're going to dismiss or not address these emotions that come up. We recognize the reaction, but then also we have to then transmute that into an outcome or a direction that we want.
You got it. That's right. That's right.
So most people now keep talking about the words motivation. I need to be more disciplined. I need to have consistency. I need to get my ass together, my life together, get my ass in gear. Get my ass together, pretty much.
I think me and everybody listening to it actually respected that better than
Fair.
better than the actual. Yeah.
Yeah. In going through that, do you believe that people lack discipline or the motivation, or is this the connected to that inner critic that's really making it hard for them to do these things?
Yeah, another great question. These are awesome questions, by the way. So what's happening when people are having lack of motivation in this day and age, in this era, when we have social media and people are just scrolling on their phones? What happens in the nervous system is that each little post or story or reel that somebody's watching, it has an emotion attached to it. So think about the people now and how, like, say somebody's on their phone for like an hour a day, which is actually probably common, or they're on their phone more than that a day. So think about how many posts they're looking at in an hour, how many emotional states that they're going through in an hour. So that really messes up somebody's nervous system, specifically when they're trying to self-regulate their emotions. All of a sudden they've been through, I don't know how many posts that, okay, so I think an average, I read somewhere, every 5 minutes, somebody can go through at least 20 posts. Okay, so 20, so there's how many 5 minutes in a minute or in an hour, right? And then times that by 20, and that's how many emotions somebody is going through in an hour. Okay, so then layer that over top of, this is my goal and I want to get motivated for this. All of a sudden, somebody goes to social media to look up how it is to get motivated, then goes through all of these emotions. And that in itself really sabotages people to get there, because then they're just exhausted because they just went through all of those emotions in 1 hour. Even if the hour is broken up in 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But it's also content, because we cannot unexperience things. So as you're looking at posts on social media, you can't unexperience all of these things. So your nervous system cannot differentiate, is this real or not? So that is the biggest, I'd say, sabotager that people are facing. Because if you took that hour back and said, here's that hour back and you can redo this whole hour, what would you do with that hour? Well, my goodness. How many things can you accomplish in an hour? Actually doing something. And that's where people need to really adjust their settings within themselves and their behavior to just really segregate their time into doing.
So as you were talking about social media, and I do have a love-hate relationship with social media because so much good can come from it, but at the same time, there's these negative emotions. I looked at my average screen time and it was 3 hours and 44 minutes on average. And that's daily. Yeah. And
wow.
I recognize that that's high. However, the posting, the creation of content, the delivery, everything happens through social media and through the app. Mm-hmm. And what I'm finding, especially with social media and what people do not understand, I see it as a business perspective, because that's how we find our clients and that's how we build our business. I also see it in a way that it can contribute positivity, but I can see how it's very easy to fall victim to the marketing and to the emotions that are there, because most people elicit feeling through emotion. That's how you get someone invested in something. And typically in social media, especially in the coaching and in the health industry, what moves people is what keeps them moving. You can move them through fear, you can move them through guilt, you can move them through frustration, which is low-level anger. All of these things creates a sense of lack. And people can move temporarily from a sense of lack. You feel like you can't lose weight. You feel like your thyroid issue and IBS is getting out of control. You feel like the Joneses bought a bigger house than you, and all of a sudden now you're looking at your house and that's not so great. These things are temporary movers, but people need to understand that social media is not, it's not about you embodying these emotions. It's really different perspectives. And just like the mind is effectively like a window, like it's meant for you to absorb the perspectives, for you to understand what's there. Hopefully your window has a screen to keep the bugs out, aka all these negative emotions, where then you can actually filter what is the message that I can get from this. Because my feed, I can promise you, looks different than the majority of feeds that are out there. My feed is filled with spirituality. My feed is filled with Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, and it's filled with people who are consciously spreading love and attention and good into the world. But some people's feeds aren't like that. Some people's feeds is negativity, it's news, it's fear, and it can be really hard to break out of that cycle. How are you helping clients, or what are you recommending for people that maybe they can start transitioning from those things from social media? Because it may be something that can't go away for them, like it can for me in my business.
Yeah, and you bring up great points. When it comes to being a business owner, you have to be on social media, right? Like it is a double-edged sword for sure. But when I have clients coming in specifically in the age demographic of age 14 to 25, 29, sometimes 30, that if they're coming for either public speaking or confidence or different things like that, the first thing I will do is I'll put them in a room and I'll tell them to go through their social media and unfollow anything that makes them feel like they're in judgment, or that it doesn't, or puts them in fear or anything like that. And I'll leave them in a room for a while. So however long that takes, because then it'll completely change their algorithm to just leaving the things that make them feel good about themselves or motivate them in some sort of way, shape, or form. And so I think it is an important thing that we're all being mindful of what it is that we're allowing our eyeballs to see, also our nervous system to experience, because like I said, we cannot unsee, we cannot unexperience things. So it's very important, but that would be one thing that I definitely do, even for myself. Like I have a reminder in my calendar that once a month I'll go through and I'll unfollow things that aren't purposeful for whatever's happening in my life. So even some things that I'm following, some things that I'm following, they're perfect for goals that I might have, but I might have achieved that goal and I'm onto another goal, and then my algorithm will still stay the same, which then in turn can keep my actions the same as well. So we want to make sure, as we're specifically as business owners or even non-business owners, but if you have a certain goal, you want to make sure, and isn't this like, even I'm going to say it, but like that your real life things that you want to do, you want to make sure your algorithm in your social media is matching that.
Okay. I love that, because people really do need to start cleaning up the energy that's around them. And just like you should clean up your friends and your family and the people who, again, are either in alignment with you and aren't, you should effectively do that with social media as well. In going through this process of regulating and working through your own emotional states so you don't get these self-sabotage patterns, are there patterns, or we'll call them tells maybe, that people should watch for in themselves that's making it like, hey, this is something that you need to regulate?
Yeah, there's a few things actually. So one, if you wake up in the morning and you're in your head about something that you need to stop, then definitely you're in a not so useful pattern. Because if you're waking up in the morning, that's the first thing that's on your mind. Like anyone that comes in to quit smoking or to cut back on drinking or toxic relationships, there's many of them. But if you wake up in the morning, there's something on your mind, and it doesn't make you feel good, and you're hitting snooze a couple extra times because of it, that's a tell, 100%. If you're not feeling good in your body in any way, shape, or form, then that means that there needs to be a realignment. So it could mean many, many things. Like I say 75% of any client that comes in for stress management, that there's something funky going on in their body. And when they start feeling good and having less stress, all of a sudden they come in, they're like, yeah, I haven't had digestion issues in like a month, or I never realized, I just stopped biting my nails, and that they didn't even come in for that, and it wasn't even on the radar. Or back pain, right? Headaches, shoulder and neck pain. There's different things that manifest in the body. And you might have other questions for me, which I will answer, but I have a question for you, if I may.
Oh, geez. Oh, this is rare. Okay.
I love the fact that you're bringing in this energetic kind of, dare I say, spiritual or vibrational thing. So when it comes to behavior, human behavior, foundationally, we are energy, right? So teach me about what you believe energy is, or your sort of take when it comes to change in us as humans and energy.
Well, I will say that my relationship with energy, I would say, is heavily connected to spirituality, which is something that I've been exploring over the past 2 years. I've been very open and transparent on the podcast and even on our YouTube channel about my experience through business and my experience through life. I think I was very logical. I was very left brain. I was forever a doer because I thought that the way to reach a sense of fulfillment or happiness was to just be destination oriented, just to the next goal, to the next thing. I built several businesses that made money, but I burnt them to the ground. I either got burnt out, I either became very overwhelmed, it fell apart very quickly with teams. And every time I started making those transitions, I thought the next goal was the next thing. And there was not the right energy behind it. There was not the right intention to it. It came from a place of lack. It came from a place of overwhelm. And so I found myself at the same destination over and over again. It was actually when we had our studio facility in Oakville where we were making the transition to online and things were lining up and I was feeling really good, where I sat down and said to myself, well, what is it that I'm doing different? I'm coming from a place of care. I'm putting proper energy behind it. And I'm really energetically looking to remove the things in my life that don't serve me. That left me, however, when you remove all of that and you create space, it leaves you with the presence to recognize what you do not have, what you do not possess. And what I did not possess and what I kept stepping over was the connection with energy, the connection with source, and me being able to just be and be okay with just being. My relationship with energy now, since joining a men's group, is really understanding that even the word emotion, for example, energy and motion, energy is meant to move through you. Everything has an energetic connection. Money is a transfer of energy. Investing time, investing energy, investing in a relationship, these are all things where energy is being traded all the time. So there's a responsibility where we have to watch the energy we give to others. We have to watch who takes our energy, and we have to watch what energy we're creating in the world. This is where my stance on energy lies right now, is now that I recognize that everything, bottom line, hands down, comes solely from me. Everything in my life was generated because I either energetically put it there or I was unconscious about it. It's on me. It's on me to build the life I want. It's on me to make sure that the energy lines up. And that's my view on energy, that it is all connected in a shape or form. Whether it's 60 steps down the road or 12 steps, it all leads to the same place, and it's all because you put it there. The second piece to that is the spirituality, which is, if I truly believe that I'm connected to energy and that I'm connected to source, there has to be something that allowed this energy to exist, that allowed me to envelop. And so what is my connection to that? Am I going to choose to say that this is totally random, or am I going to lean in and say, I'm not the only one who's contributing to this thing. You're bringing energy on this podcast. Other people, your clients, are bringing energy every day. So with that, there has to be more to it than that. So I've leaned really in on doing things from an energetic balance and from alignment. And I've really leaned in on just trusting that everything is working out and that ultimately there's something higher than myself.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Everything that you said. And what I'm going to add to that too is that when we are in a left brain, and I love that you brought this up, because in hypnosis and neurolinguistics, and when it comes to human behavior, if we're analysis paralysis, which the general population understands that statement, then we can end up in stagnancy. We can hold ourselves back. We're slowing the process down of getting to our goals or changing or transforming. Right? When we're right brain, more in the creative side of things, we're more imaginative. We're seeing the world in a different way. We're looking more for solutions as opposed to finding out the why, right? Because if we're looking for, well, why is this? Why am I not doing this? Why can I not do this? Then we're just choosing to believe a certain concept about ourselves. Where when we're in the imagination side of the brain, we're actually more able to see solutions, to actually be able to visually, which when we are imagining things visually, it's easier to get to the destination because we can see it. And also what I want to add is that when we are sometimes too literal, that we're not seeing the bigger picture too. So if we're inferred and we're okay to kind of like brush along the edges as opposed to stay right in the lines, because when we come a little bit outside the lines, that's where the fun is too in life. And we need to have fun, because us as energetic human beings, we have to laugh. So when we talk about emotions, that we want to make sure that we are having the whole rainbow of emotions. And giving ourselves permission to cry. Because I know with a lot of men in particular that like I have a lot of male clients, and when they come in, they cry, and because they have permission to, and they've never had permission to. And it's also a very safe space to allow emotion to come out. And then my last comment in terms of when you're talking about energy and when you're letting go and creating that space, that scientifically, our brain sorts by what it is that we're filling in our mind. Meaning, if we're thinking about our past and why things weren't fair, or we're stressed about past or in fear about past, or even in the moment, if we're in worry or judgment, then our brain is going to look for those things. Whatever we're filling our brain with, our brain will look for those things. Because there is like millions of bits of information around us all the time. But we as humans, we can't absorb it. We can't take that in. We can only take in about 150 bits of it. So those 150 bits are based upon what it is that we're choosing to believe, right? So when it comes to human behavior, we want to make sure that our mind is in the right place so that we're giving the cues to pick up the 50 bits of information that's going to support our goals or outcomes.
This draws a question from me. I guess there needs to be some context. So I have had mentors in the past, and I feel like a lot of people get caught in this coaching of this mentor trap where the information and the intention to teach and to help grow someone is very true. It's very aligned, but the messaging does not come from either you're not receiving the message properly because maybe you're in a different state of belief, or they're not giving the message properly. So I had a mentor who I had to do a lot of work to undo what was taught. It was very like the world, you need to slay it, cut down everyone in front of you. And like that really works for sales, and that's it. And the rest of it is very, you can't confront life like that. I bring that up because in going through this process, we talk a lot about, and the buzzword is belief now, is you have to change your beliefs. You have to believe that you can be better.
Yeah.
How does someone go about the starting points of belief change? Because sometimes when you clean things up, it's messier than what it was before as you start unpacking boxes and all of a sudden more and more starts appearing. You're unpeeling the onion. Where would you start with belief change?
So it's interesting because the beliefs are also stemmed from all of the filters that have been created. So all the things that we've been through in life, those are what our filters are comprised of. So it's unfortunate that you ended up with a mentor that was on his own belief system and on his own agenda, as opposed to being on your agenda and giving you what you need, right? Because that's really how we approach things. When we're working with people, we disappear. Like that's how it is in our community. So we're just looking at the person and what it is that
beautiful.
they need.
I don't ever think anyone's ever said that.
Yeah, well, and I strongly believe that. So if I'm working with anybody, my energy, my belief system, anything of how I live my life, I just completely disappear and I'm looking at the human in front of me and what it is that they need. So even if I have a client coming in for something and all of a sudden something happened in their life, well, I'm not just going to stay like, whoa, we're only talking about this. Well, no, it's like, okay, this is what you need now in this moment, right? And that's how it has to be. That's what I believe how it has to be. So when we talk about changing somebody's belief system, I would actually get them to do this exercise that I call a rules alignment, because when people call it beliefs, that is the buzzword right now, their beliefs, which it's their rules that they're choosing to believe that they need to live by. And those rules were created to, one, protect themselves, two, not let people down because they're generationally bringing down the rules, right? Like depending on what culture somebody's from. So I'll literally get them to just draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper and handwrite. And the handwrite thing is very important. So I know a lot of people, they like to keep notes on their phone. Mm-hmm. I have notepads in every room here, and I get people to do a lot of handwriting because when we handwrite something, it's directly connected to our nervous system. When you're handwriting something, you're visualizing it more. It's an important thing. So if anyone's listening to this or watching this, if you write it in a journal, only write what you want. Because if you're writing what you don't want or all the crap that you went through during the day, you're going through it again. And why go through it again?
That's really good. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that.
So also this exercise on the left side, which is the left side of the brain, on the left side of this, you're writing down all of the old rules, all of the beliefs that you want to get rid of that's sabotaging you. And then on the right side, the creative side of the brain, that you're writing down the new rule that makes more sense. Then what you're doing is you're reading out the old rule, read out the new rule, scratch out the old rule, read out the new rule again. In that order. So if you're listening to this, rewind and play again and make sure that you're doing it in that process because it's really neurolinguistic. Okay, so neurolinguistically that you're changing your state of mind, and over time, repetitiously, if you continue to do this, and I suggest my clients to do it at least once every 3 months. Once they've gone through the program, and if they're just kind of maintaining, once every 3 months is good because it's not just set it and forget it. You can't, it's where the world is constantly changing. We naturally, automatically make new rules for ourselves, even down to like having your toothbrush on the left side of your sink in your bathroom, or, where people throw their socks on the floor and not in the hamper, or people make their bed or don't make their bed. Like, what's really important? If you Google any of that crap, people say it's good, it's bad, it's whatever, right? Like, but it's really changing the way that you're doing things to stay more focused on your goals and outcomes ongoingly, right? Yeah, I went out a little bit left field there, but there you go. I love that.
No, it's fantastic. And I love the idea of especially writing it left side, right side. You painted it in a way where people can have a very simple step-by-step process, because oftentimes when we go to make changes in our life, sometimes it's easy to see how far we are or how overwhelming it can be. And then we get back into that paralyzing state where we don't really take any action on it because it can be difficult. It can be overwhelming. But I think that's a very simple place to start to reset, like, how am I redefining the way that I'm operating? What are my beliefs that I have currently in this moment? The next step, I imagine, would be to actually maybe set a couple of basic goals. Like, what would you say maybe some initial steps to be to set goals in a way that is in alignment with those beliefs now?
Yeah, and I just want to go back one thing. So when people are changing their beliefs, sometimes there's a lot of guilt and shame wrapped around it. So sometimes it's really hard for somebody to let go of a belief or a rule that they have because it was so ingrained in them growing up. And all of a sudden the nervous system can go through a grieving process, which is like denial, anger, bargaining, sadness. And there's a little bit of like guilt and shame sometimes, or judgment, or fear that they're going to let somebody down because, like, you must do this or you must do that growing up. So sometimes that needs to be cleaned up as well. So it's good to be really mindful that if you're doing this exercise and you're defaulting back to some of these beliefs or popping back in, maybe there's some guilt or shame wrapped around that that needs to be cleaned up in some way. And then when it comes to setting the goals, it's like you're kind of letting go of old values or beliefs so that when you're setting a goal, you want to fantasize about it. How does that land in your life? How's that going to fill your needs? And maybe this is a whole other podcast on setting goals because I can go on forever for this one.
Okay. There's
But
for
I
sure going to
I
be a
want to
part
value
two
your
to this,
time.
100%. Yeah, that's very helpful because I know it, and people, and for those of you listening, you know that you can now text the Hormone Helper podcast. So I'm sure when this launches, that we're going to get a ton of texts on that, and we may have to do
Mm.
literally a part two on setting goals 100%. But I think
I'd
that,
love that.
yeah, I appreciate that because I think that everyone listening is going to understand that there is work before the action of just doing a goal or working towards something. And oftentimes
Hmm.
we want to skip to the final destination and step, but there are other things that we have to do. Otherwise, you're going to end up like me, who's done this 6 times. And it's like this, there can't be a seventh business. There can't be, it's
No, there
like, no, we
can't.
can be happy with where we are and what we have right now. We just have to redefine things a little bit different. So I
Yeah, and not
appreciate
on my
you
watch,
sharing that.
Andrew. Not on my watch.
That's right, and I am very grateful that now I have everything between like my men's community. I have very good like business connections and people who are actually friends, which is amazing. It's not just business
Wonderful.
associates, and yeah, the intentions are in the right place. So sometimes it takes mistakes for you to find the path that you need. So I welcome
Always. We're
all of
here.
it.
Yeah, we're here to learn, right? So, yeah.
100%. I want to leave this podcast on a question because you've had such a varied career, and typically I ask people another question, but this one really kind of sticks out. You've been from creative to corporate. You've done a lot of different things. You've worked with a lot of people in tons of different
Hmm.
mindsets and states. How has that shaped your understanding of people and transformation?
Wow. So I understand people as love. And that's really just put simply. Like when I see people, I just see love energy, even if that person is struggling in horrendous ways. And I'll give you an example, and maybe this could answer the question. So my understanding is that all of us as human beings, we are here for a purpose. And that purpose could be absolutely anything. It could take some time for that person to find their purpose. The purpose might shift. For me, my purpose, I know that the way that I understand people is at a depth that so many others actually don't see. And I understand that that is a gift and I honor that gift. And I know that that gift is not mine. So I volunteer that gift. For example, like if my husband and I, if we go out to a restaurant and we walk past the bar and we go and sit down, and my husband is my human. Like he is an extension of myself, truly. He'll just look at me and he's like, go ahead. And because I connected with somebody energetically and I knew that something was going on. So I'll introduce myself, I'll let them know what I do for a living, and then I'll do what I'll give them a read.
Wow.
And just that read will give them some insight, what they want to do with that insight. My intention is just to alleviate some pain or something energetically that's going on with them. Sometimes they'll end up being a client, but not always, which my intention is not for them to become a client. It's just to alleviate some sort of pain or discomfort that they're in. So, yeah, so my understanding when it comes to us as humans, I just see us as love and that we're truly here to help one another. And I'm a strong advocate for that. So when I'm either training somebody to be a healer, a change worker, a hypnotist, an NLP practitioner, whatever industry that they're in, that, yeah, I want to see them thrive in whichever way that they need to be thriving to get to their purpose.
It really shows the level of character that you have. And I really do genuinely believe that we can all act and operate from a level of love and high connection, that it's a choice. You have to choose that for sure. Sometimes that's not the easiest choice to make, but it's definitely the one that's most fulfilling and that brings the most joy into people's life. And you're living that. So I think that is incredible. And I appreciate you sharing everything with us today and really just helping break down like beliefs, a sense of self-sabotage, and helping them understand that it's not something that you have to keep yourself stuck in, that you can continue to work and move towards this. I know that people can find you at the Burlington Hypnosis Clinic, and I'll of course make sure to tag that. Is there anything else that you're working on that you would love to share with the audience that might be a great resource for them, or even a place that they can find them? We'll drop your socials too.
Yeah, so I generally donate 2 hours of my time a month, and the charity that I was donating my time, they're shifting. And so now I actually have the 2 hours available. So if anybody has, whether it's a youth group or a men's group or a mom's group or any kind of group that they want somebody to come in and talk about human behavior to help their group with whatever the frustration or struggle is, definitely just reach out. You can even just Google Tree Ryde, TreeRyde, and all of my websites and everything will show up. Websites, handles, and all of them will come to me. So yeah, if anybody wants to even hire me, if it's a corporation and they want to hire me to do a talk, I'm happy to do that.
What a beautiful opportunity. And it really is an opportunity because, you and I have had other conversations outside of this, but I know that this is just the beginning of these things. And I think the awareness that someone can develop through having these conversations, and sometimes it's just all it takes is a 5-second shine a light on it just for them enough to say, hey, look, there's actually something here that I can work on and do. A lot of the times it is way easier for someone else to shine that light than it is for you to go searching when you have a bunch of stuff and you just look in the same places over and over again. So definitely take Tree up on that opportunity. It really is an opportunity. So, and I appreciate you sharing everything with us. I know that this is the start of just more fun episodes to come, but I appreciate you taking the time to hop on with us today. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. And remember as well too, you can now text the Hormone Helper Podcast. Guys, I do not do or open the texts. We have a person who checks the tests, so don't just send it to me directly. Like, feel free to ask questions of Tree, ask questions of other episodes, and we will bring them up. We can always have guests come back on and really help unpack this knowledge, but you can now do that. Otherwise, make sure that you keep tuning into the Hormone Helper Podcast. That is all, and have a great day. Well, it seems I'm all out of info juice for today. That's all for this episode, and thank you so much for listening. Please leave a raving review for me if you've learned something good, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Now, if you're in the mood for some more great content and tools to get your hormones on track, why not check out our free Facebook group and the blog on our site? We do amazing weekly trainings in our group that me and my wife call Tea and Teachings that give good tips for anything hormones and metabolism related. It's also a great community where you get to share your goals and success with like-minded people just like you. I'll make sure to drop both the Facebook group link and the blog link in the show notes for you. Or if you're ambitious like me, the name of the group is Weight Loss and Balanced Hormones. It'll say Fit for All beside it with a picture of me. So come and join us and have more fun.